Greetings, Remax Distinctive. This is Dan Bouchard Fernandez. Again, we are now jumping into Skyslope, Skyslope proper. So prior to this, we were working with Skyslope forms. We briefly dove into Skyslope listings. Now we're going to go ahead and handle the transactions. So let's go ahead and log into Skyslope. And so when we log in, your dashboard will look something like this. And what we're going to do is keep in mind that the listing is handled here in this create listing transaction, and then we'll manage the listings here. When we're talking about a buyer transaction, currently the way that the system works is that you're going to submit your buyer agency documents through the forms portal and get those submitted through forms for all the signatures there, including the broker's signature there. That'll just kind of sit in the forms platform, and then from there, once you've got a transaction, then you can tie those to a buyer. So the way that that's working here is because because I previously set up a buyer in Skyslope forms, that populates here as John Doe. So John Doe is the buyer. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and click it, add in some data here for the MLS number, street number, and throw in some digits in here just to get this done. And let's go ahead and just put some erroneous data here just for demonstration purposes. And personal referral, let's say this was a no. Let's say that this was a DC sale. Let's go and put street name, something, District of Columbia. And this is a purchase. Let's go ahead. Keep in mind the year built is here for determining whether or not lead-based paint is relevant. Let's say that the settlement date is here, 6/19, office lead. Oh, date of acceptance. Let's go ahead and put that today. So now that we've got all the data fields, whoops, nope. Let's just put some data in here. All right, now we've got the transaction. So here we've got the transaction, and we will take this from our sales contract, and we will enter the seller's name here. Boom, boom. Assuming that we are not representing the seller and the tenant together, we will only put those names in there. If we're handling both of them together, you will have already created a listing transaction in the other application like we showed in the previous videos. So that will be auto-populated here. If you're just representing the buyer, then this information here will be saved, and then we will move on to the tenant and his number. Let's go ahead and put I don't know, whatever, we got some numbers here, some digits, and we're going to assuming that that's correct, we're going to go ahead and go edit, and then we're going to save it. And you'll see that once that section has been saved, a check mark appears in both of these as we move through it. So next we're going to move through to the title and escrow. So if we go ahead and put in some information in here, and then we can hit save. Please enter closing officer's first name. So let's go ahead and just enter in their data. Let's just do that. Put some a@b.com. And let's go ahead and put this information here, clicking through all of this. So the attorney's name, putting in erroneous information here, and then we'll go ahead and click through that. Click save, and so that fills us there. We now have a check mark here. The agent representing the other side will put in a name in here, put in another last name here, put in a phone number 3-9 brokerage company, and we'll hit save. Okay. Now what we'll do is click submit. Okay. So now it puts us into this. So now we're heading into some more details. So it's looking for how much compensation we will get in this transaction. Because we're handling the buyer's side in this portion of it, we're only concerned about the sale commission. If we were in the listing checklist of this process, then we would also have the requirement to put in the listing commission. But because we're only handling the buyer on this, let's just go ahead and put a number here that the MLS is telling us that we're going to get, and then we submit that transaction in here. All right, so now that we're down here to the checklist. So in DC, for example, the checklist is set up, and these are the requirements that are in the DC checklist. If you'll notice here, you will find that there is the little eye circle icon here contains instructions as to what compliance is looking for when we're talking about this particular document. So here it must be signed. It's first substantive discussion. If buyer is unrepresented or represented by other side, please state so in the comments. So let me say that I'm going to say that buyer is unrepresented, and then I will save that. Okay. So now it's still marked required, but I've added a comment here that's saying buyer is unrepresented. And because I've said that, that will tell the compliance that there is not a buyer agency agreement, so therefore not to look for that. So again, consent. So here, because this is the same thing, we're going to say buyer is unrepresented. Just using this as an example, as examples, right? FSBO, it's not applicable, so we're not going to use that. Dual representation, buyer is unrepresented in this situation. I'm just using these as examples, but whatever the circumstances are, if you are going to actually upload the document, then you will go ahead and attach the document. So disclosure brokerage relationship. Here, here's where it is. You'll go ahead and assign, oops, didn't mean to do that. So you'll go ahead, disclosure brokerage relationship. Let's assign that to the field. And there it is. It has appeared here in the field. All of these documents will populate that way when you assign them into the checklist. Assigning means that you're populating it into the checklist. So you'll move through, you'll go ahead, and if there's the contract is here in this particular checklist, it's not, I didn't upload it, but let's say that I need to go ahead and upload it from another transaction somewhere. I can go ahead and pull it up and insert it into this folder, and it'll appear here. And then I can then go ahead and assign it. So let's just use I don't know, I'll just use any old PDF that I have. All right, let's look at this. Okay, let's say that this is the contract. So that was let's say I added that as the contract. Now you can see that it's there. And technically it's really not the contract, of course, because I just picked out any old PDF document. But as you can see, I've added it into the transaction. It's there for compliance to review. Compliance will review these others as well, follow through with all the other requirements. For example, if the property was constructed after 1978, then go ahead and state property built. In 1980 or something like that. So you're telling compliance that's the reason why you're not putting the federal lead-based paint disclosure in there. You're going to save that. You'll do the same thing for this one. You're putting in a note, go ahead, so not to expect it. not to expect it. Otherwise, if it is built before 1978, then of course, then you will go ahead and attach the document, and let's say that this was it, and you'd assign it to that field. So that's the way that you would work through that. Then, once you've satisfied all the requirements of the checklist, including the closing documents, you would attach the HUD one or the ALTA statement. Once you've finally gone through here, you would attach all of these other required documents. And once all of it has to be, go through the compliance section. And when I review the compliance as the supervising broker, I'm going to look to see these, look at these documents to make sure that they meet the requirements of the law. So it'll go through my compliance first, then it'll go down to Granny's, and so they will process. Granny's and the office staff will handle this these documents down here. And once those are satisfied, they will approve those.